What's it take to be a creative entrepreneur?
It takes a lot of discipline, still being able to find inspiration in a lot of places. Definitely a lot of being creative and how you want to build those new relationships with people. You then have to begin to scale and really try to operate as a business. Like, what does that look like in terms of, infrastructure? What does that look like on the creative side in terms of copyrights and trademarks? What does that look like in terms of developing like stylistic branding options?
If there's one designer, dead or alive, that you'd love to get dinner with, who would it be and what would you ask them?
I've been really big on Virgil Abloh, the former creative director of Off-White, because I've just was so invested for a long time about like the stuff that he was doing and a lot of the things that he was making, not just the stuff he did with Nike, but a lot of stuff like a lot of people didn't know that he had a company before he made Off-White. I saw a video on TikTok and somebody said like a little bit about like business and entrepreneur stuff, but it really was like how to really value yourself now, because, like I tell people all the time, there's days I might get 0 flat sales. It's some days I might get 120 in a day. It's just like, it's so up and down like a wave. And I saw a video on TikTok. It was, the guy asked him, he said, what would you do if I offered you $10 million right now? Would you take it?
But I think the thing that people really need to know is that entrepreneurship is a huge risk. And yeah, there's a chance it doesn't work out. But I think that what people should take in mind is that the risk is definitely worth the reward, in the sense that worst case, maybe you're a little more broke than when you started. Best case is that for the rest of your life, you get to do something you enjoy. When a clothing designer is doing something, do you think that it's more important that they do it for an audience or they do it more for themselves?
I think it's a bit of both. At least I know in my practice, I think at least my audience kind of resonates with the stuff that I do personally. I think they've grown more to like, we kind of share the same interests. And that definitely helps with like building like the business and the brand. Like, I didn't want to try to tackle an industry or something that I don't really know a lot about, because then I kind of fight the learning curve. I know a lot about fashion. I know a lot about sneakers. I know a lot about pop culture. I know a lot about digital trends.
Today's guest is Terrance Diggs, and Terrance is a Baltimore area designer and an entrepreneur, but not just any kind of entrepreneur. Terrance is a creative entrepreneur. And I think that's really interesting, because it's one thing to just try to build a company, but it's another thing to do something innovative within a creative industry. He's also the founder of D17, a streetwear and lifestyle brand, and has a really unique story. So he's actually worked with some of the world's largest brands on their creative strategies. And he spoke a lot about what it really takes to be a creative entrepreneur and how he's able to compete in one of the most saturated markets on the planet, which is apparel and fashion. But I think one of the most interesting points that we discussed was creativity and whether it's innate or trained. And I think that that conversation has a lot of value add. And if you're someone that might not be as innately creative, I think Terrance spoke about a lot of really interesting stuff and how you can really up your creativity. So I definitely stay tuned to hear that part. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Terrance. Terrance, what's up, my man? Welcome to the podcast.
How's it going? I'm glad to be here. Glad to finally, like we mentioned before the call, getting on and compacting schedules, but I'm happy to be here and get to talking about some stuff.
For sure. For those that don't know, to speak to the audience a bit, me and Terrance were supposed to connect a little earlier, but as fate would have it, we had to postpone a bit, but we hustled and we were able to make it happen. So, it's fate that we're getting a chance to have a great conversation. So here's where I want to start. Terrance, you're the founder of a streetwear brand called D17, and I want to ask you a lot about that later. But clothing is a really interesting space in particular, because it's, competitive as hell, but it's an art. And these days you're really trying to get people to resonate with your brand. But before I get into all that, I want to go back a little bit. Take me back to young Terrance. Did you always know you wanted to be a designer?
I would definitely say yes and no a little bit. Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one to start out with. I will say back in like my early practice, I mean, I feel like everyone starts like sketching, just doing cartoons and stuff, or like, getting into like the anime world. Like I still have like, Dragon Ball Z volumes next to me and stuff like that. I think everyone, always is just like, oh, I'm gonna trace the pictures, and being able to kind of just get the practice down. I definitely grew up in a very like kind of artistic family. So my uncle was an animator. My grandmother used to be really into like crocheting and sewing and painting, and as well my mom. She used to work in the advertising space for a really long time. So at first, I always thought I was going to be like an animator. Like I really wanted to make video games, and I really wanted to like because I'm pretty close to Bethesda Studios, which is the Prime show Fallout. They made that game. I think it was one of the Fallout fours, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a game creator. I'm gonna make a game. So in college, I made my first game, and it sucked. So I was like, okay, maybe this is not what I wanted to do because I can't code to save my life. So over time, I kind of learned that like designing and being able to kind of get those artistic elements involved as well. Probably around like college, I would say that transition started to come because I was always, back in the day, it was hard to get Photoshop licenses and stuff like that. But I was like the one that had this random cracked Photoshop on my laptop from like 2013. So over that time, it was really just kind of making those connections, and everybody was looking for a designer, whether it was flyers or cover arts for music singles or being able to create merchandise. That's what I was doing a lot of times in my undergrad. And then I was like, okay, I think this designer thing is a little bit more up my alley. I think eventually I'll get back into animation. Maybe I'll do like a voice acting role or something like that, or like if they want to put me in like Fortnite or something, I'll do it. But it's always ever changing. I think with the arts, it's always something new catches your eye or something else pops up, and it's like, okay, I think I want to go that route. And here we are. I'm almost, 10 years in designing, just about. So it's been a journey, and it still changes. And I'm glad I'm in this position now.
Well, never say never on the Fortnite thing. Who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
next year we'll get a Terrance Fortnite character, but
Yeah. Or a t-shirt or emote or something. I'll do whatever.
definitely. You mentioned anime. Is there a favorite anime that you had growing up?
Oh, geez. I definitely was one of those like Toonami wait until 2 in the morning kind of kids, like especially me and
Funny.
my cousins. Like anytime I would go to my uncle's house, my parents would never let me watch like anything like Adult Swim and stuff like that. But I go to my uncle's and he'd be like, yeah, like I don't care. Like y'all can just stay up and we watch it like underneath the cover. It's like, ooh, like Naruto, you just got a kunai in his hand, stuff like that. But I definitely love like obviously like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Yu Yu Hakusho. I really loved a show called Space Dandy for a long time. And Fooly Cooley. It was like a dude, it was like a robot and like a girl that had like a bass guitar. I think it was only like 6 episodes or something like that. But I just remember sitting up and watching and seeing all that and just being amazed not only by like the artwork, but as well as like the music as well, the storytelling, and being able to just kind of tie that in because obviously you saw the show, you played the game, you saw the movie. It's kind of like its own world. And as you can see in the back, like I love all the Marvel stuff too, not even just for what they are, but even just the visual elements, being able to kind of get my inspiration from things like that, and going from there. So anime definitely played a big role. And now it's kind of, I see some of those elements when I start designing stuff or try to find inspiration. I always try to go back to those, at least like text sources or video references and stuff. So
You
it's
know,
around, still around.
you know what's funny about that? I used to geek out on Naruto back in the day. I love the storyline. I love the arc. I mean, now I think there's like some kind of, he's like Hokage or something. I didn't really follow it to like the
Yeah.
second chapter, but like the main one in the Shippuden, I used to geek out on that stuff. But
Yeah, I watched like the whole Shippuden on my iPad on Crunchyroll back when it was free when I was in undergrad. Like my roommate, he definitely was like, "What does this man do?" I used to just lay on the side like this, watching it in between classes and stuff. So I'm definitely the newer ones. I'm still kind of getting into. I haven't watched all the new ones yet. Just like finding the time is so hard now.
mm,
Like I can't sit and watch like 10 episodes in a day. Like I can get maybe one, but I'm like half asleep and like super tired. So it's like I'm still watching the My Hero Academia first movie, like the third time. I've only been 20 minutes in because I keep falling asleep because I'm so exhausted. So
for sure,
it's
today's
all good.
today's generation will never know the kind of anime that we got to grow up with. We got to grow up with the real stuff. So
Oh yeah.
leave that at that. But you mentioned how kind of you grew up in a family of creatives and kind of family of designers. So when you first started personally designing, what were some of those first design projects that you got a chance to work on?
Yeah, so this is probably 2014. I had a buddy. His name was Kasim, and he was a rapper, up and coming rapper. And we actually worked for like housing and residence life. Like we used to be like coworkers in college. And pretty much he was like, "Hey, I need a cover art for this song I'm trying to do. I was making a couple mixtapes, and I want to get back into the game." And he's like, "Yeah, you know how to design, so let's do it." So I remember we took about 2 weeks to put together this cover art, like from sketch to strategy to execution, and even activation as well. Like I didn't think I was doing all that, at the time. Like I didn't know what that was because I wasn't really brought up in the marketing side. I just kind of thought it out, but I knew how to create it visually. And we did a project. It was called Overthink. I don't think it exists anymore, but we were able to put that together, do the photography. We put together a couple of visual artworks that were around the campus back at Towson University, it's located outside of Baltimore. We even did a live artistic activation with an underground artist. Like he redrew the cover art on like a blackboard that's located in the center of campus. We were able to do like a bunch of other flyers and merchandise and driving and taking the metro up and down from Baltimore to DC to Virginia, like making these covers and flyers and taking pictures at shows and creating set designs. Like it was just so much. And we were doing that on like zero to no budget other than like my meals from my, my meal plan. So those were definitely the ones I think that really like started it. And I did a lot of things on campus as well, like working with student organizations on like, the free t-shirts you get at like events. I also did things. We had our annual concert called Tiger Fest. I did a couple of poster designs for them. And then I did some stuff with like the fraternity, sorority, like Greek life, t-shirts. Like if they had like it's, Dunkin' Donuts and Dunk the Frat Brothers, event. Like I was making the shirts for that. And then over time, once I graduated, that's when we got into a little bit more serious projects. I got more into developing D17. I did a little bit of app design as well with my friend Nick. That was really like propelled me as a designer. Like we did an app together called Album Pop, which it was just making like fake cover arts like on your phone. Like you could do it. It was kind of like Canva before Canva existed, but it was just like the internet trend when it was, oh, we're gonna drop the hottest mixtape of 2015. Like it was able to do that off of just a regular picture, and people were just posting it and getting social traffic. And those, I even was just looking back at some of those projects, like actually like a couple hours ago, like wow, that was a time I had just so much fun. There was no deadline, there was no budget. It just was, let's
Love
see what we can
creation.
do. Yeah, it was just really, what can we do? Let's experiment, let's trial, let's create solutions. There was no full plan. It just was, let's see what happens. And, organically it came back to us via social or word of mouth or being able to just create more projects. And you know, I still miss it sometimes. But I gotta stop looking at the old days and start focusing forward now.
Yeah, memory lane do be like that. It reminds me of those days when Straight Outta Compton came out and there was all these memes that was like straight out of, and then everyone would always like change the Compton to like one of their custom
Yeah.
pieces. So
It was
definitely
a little bit like that, but we couldn't get the license to that same font. But it was kind of like that same thing. Like it just built like a fake like meme template. It was really just a meme generator on your phone that was for free. Um, but like I mentioned before, we were doing just so much strategy, like thinking this is just, kids, students in their dorm room, like, okay, yeah, we're making these fake cover arts. Cool. It's a joke for Instagram. But then we kind of took it to another level and we were like, what if we're able to use this as a resource for actual artists that they might not have a designer on budget or whatever. And they just want to make a quick cover art. We had I think at one point we had about 20,000 downloads within the first like year and a half. Keep in mind, I'm only like 21 at this point. Like I'm just messing around. And we made our own radio show for a minute. Like we're bringing on the artists that were using the cover arts like that in the app. We were doing, event promotion in it. Like it was kind of like an underground app for a minute.
I bet.
I think it might have been sunsetted at this point, but it was so fun to do. Like we were doing podcasting and we like tried it, but it was like, it was just messing around. It was literally just taking a mic in a room full of my friends and just sitting in a circle and putting it on like, just full capture and then just seeing what happens. And, it was cool at the time. And now it's like, okay, kind of taking those lessons and building other projects off it. So it kind of like builds that foundation to a lot of future things too.
Definitely, those are the best kind of podcasts when you can just shoot the shit and like talk about whatever. Can definitely relate to that. That's what I
Oh
try to do on
yeah.
mine.
Gotta love it.
So we spoke a little bit earlier about entrepreneurship, and I want to kind of get into the whole entrepreneurial spirit a little bit later. But entrepreneurship is really tough, and it's one of those things that you have to kind of figure out what you want your work schedule to look like, and you're working all
Mm-hmm.
the time, but then you're trying to prioritize. Basically, it's, in my opinion, more art than science. But where what you do and what's really interesting, you kind of take it to another level, being a creative entrepreneur. So, what's it take to be a creative entrepreneur?
I think it definitely is a lot of discipline. I'm not going to lie. It takes a lot of discipline, still being able to find inspiration in a lot of places. Definitely a lot of being creative and how you want to build those new relationships with people. I know, like for me, I've always had the business like on the side, right? It just kind of was like, okay, yeah, I'll do this here and there. I'll do this here and there, like whatever, it's cool. My friends will wear it, a couple of their friends will wear it, stuff like that. But then it gets to the point where it's like, it's no longer just like a hobby. You then have to begin to scale and really try to operate as a business. Like, what does that look like in terms of, infrastructure? What does that look like on the creative side in terms of copyrights and trademarks? What does that look like in terms of developing like stylistic branding options? It's more than just like, hey, I'm just going to slap my logo on a t-shirt. Now we're at the point where it's like, how can we create those silhouettes and how can we create those kind of like ideals and motifs that are a little bit bigger for a brand? And then on the creative side, it's like, how can I still keep my creativity? Because before it was like, okay, I'm going to go to work. I do whatever they tell me to do at work. Now I can go home and it can be my outlet. This is my outlet for making stuff. Now my outlet is all the time. Now I need another outlet for the old outlet, which I kind of picked up like streaming games on Twitch. So being able to kind of jump in those, like I play this game called DayZ a lot. It's like a zombie apocalypse survival game. Like it's literally like you have to watch your food and water and stuff like that. But playing that game, like some of the clothing and stuff that you see in the game, I kind of like, okay, this is like weirdly inspiring to me in a way. Like I kind of see like what they're getting at. Like you can get real shoes in the game, like fake models of shoes and stuff. Like you can get like Nike Dunks in the game and something and like modded servers. And, you know, now I'm building relationships that way. And then how are we able to be creative to get those bigger opportunities? It's like, hey, yeah, we make this type of apparel, but what if we started making pickleball apparel? What if we started making, I don't know what the new one, I think it's just called paddle apparel or something, or like even the running stuff, how can we consistently innovate, but still remain relevant, but also keep it fun and create solutions for not only the market that we're serving, but for my own self. I got to design graphics. I can't just keep repeating stuff. So I got to stay fresh and on top of things too.
Paddle, pickle, tomato, tomato, same
Yeah,
kind of same kind of
I've
vibe.
seen I've seen the new one. It just like looks like a pickleball paddle, but it's got holes in it. Like I don't know. I've never seen this one before. I don't know if I need to like become an early adopter of this or something and like invest in a team or I don't know or buy one myself, but we'll see.
Just the rebrand, no big deal.
Yeah.
One of the things that you spoke about, actually, you were talking about how it went from just a hobby you were doing to kind of creating designs for your friends or kind of small projects to doing it full time. And
Mm.
you talked about how it was really hard to scale or really hard to do that scaling process. What was the hardest part about getting kind of a creative project to scale?
Yeah, I think it definitely, at least in my practice, and I feel like a lot of small business people, it's really just like the way of like getting the capital changes. Like, a lot of us, it's like the what I like to say, the 9 to 5 is funding the 5 to 9. But now that the 9 to 5 is gone, you have to figure out ways that it's like, okay, how can your business get to where it needs to be? Cause like we do a lot of sponsorships, and now it's like, okay, I can't just willy nilly on whatever. Like, okay, look, here's this, and just if it doesn't turn into any type of sale or any type of like market value for the both of us, um, you have to be a little bit smarter with those, and then being able to be like, okay, how can we strategically kind of pinpoint ourselves without like blowing the budget? Because now it's like that sponsorship money is eating into inventory money. That inventory money is eating into, marketing dollars for paid marketing dollars. It's eating into, I need to get new business cards. I need to get a new card reader, something like that. But kind of learning that as well is how to understand like which creative things may need to be pushed and which may need to be taken back. Like I just had a situation with the business that we tried to do this like creative landing page thing. Like I don't even know what it was. It was cool at the time, but then it's like, okay, I'm now paying for hosting services. I don't think I need to do that anymore. It's not been updated, so my SEO is garbage on it. Is it really pushing the business forward? It was cool at the time, is like a little bit more of a passion project, but now it's like, okay, we need to focus on things for the business that can generate revenue still, while, like I said, having fun and, doing all that good stuff that keeps the business to know for what it is, because we're very playful. We like to do out of the box things. I can't do 6 rounds of free t-shirts in a year anymore. But, once I get back into that kind of rotation, then it's like, okay, we can do it again. But it's like, all right, sorry, people, we gotta dial back a little bit. It's eating into the my Shopify balance. So
Well, gotta keep up that cash flow. So it sounds like as you start taking it, a little more seriously, and as you move towards, a full-time design kind of role, you have
mm,
to become a little smarter and maybe a little more selective between the projects you take on just to make sure they align with the stuff that you're looking for.
yeah, definitely.
So speaking about design, a lot of people, maybe the average consumer, someone like me, could walk past a store and see some really cool T-shirts and think like, oh, like that's a vibe, like that's a really cool design. So
Mm-hmm.
we only see the front of the house of what's going on. What's something about design that you think the average person doesn't know?
Oh, geez. I would definitely say, even if it's not just clothing stuff, I would just say the amount of like time it takes to get to end product. I know specifically for me in my practice, like I do a lot of research. I do a lot, like almost it's like consuming to me research, not even at the point on just the visual side, but also on the number side. I'm a numbers, like it's kind of weird when I tell people like, yeah, I'm a creative, but I'm like, I understand like I'm more bigger in the numbers than it is just like keeping things visual. Sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna pull from, let's say it is a cover art, right? And this person, they want it to be, loud, but speak to them, but they want to keep it, easily, uh, you know, replicated across like digital and, let's say print, as well as like physical product. But then it's also like, what is that going to do in today's like real time? Like, I don't want to talk about it, but like the Drake and Kendrick
Gotta
rap beef that's going on
bring it
right
up.
now. Yeah, but looking at some of like the things, like, yeah, they're releasing the songs, but like I try to go a step further. Like even like the cover arts they're doing, they're not that impressive, but they're good enough for that what they're trying to put out. Yes, it is a little bit speedy. Yes, it is a little bit kind of unpolished. Like Kendrick did the song Euphoria. They literally just screenshotted like the Webster dictionary definition of euphoria, but then that kind of led into like, I think I saw Merriam-Webster's Twitter actually like tweeted at them, and they're like, we want to nominate this for cover art or something, or put this in the online description of the word, or we're going to add this as an annotation. It's like, think about that in that realm, that yes, it's starting to get social traction. It might not be super visually appealing, but it also kind of like hits where it needs to in other ways that it might not just be on a visual. Cause sometimes the visual might speak more than the music might speak more than the visual. And usually that's where the research comes in, how fast we need to do it, how clean do we need to do it, what platforms do we need to do it on, like being able to do that and how no one really sees that part. We just see like, oh, it's on Apple Music, but it took probably like 3 days of like planning and putting together like pieces to make it look like what it is. And a lot of people don't see that. And then also just like getting stuff rendered out takes forever, especially video. It could take like 5 hours. And it's like, oh, change the color of this. Great. Another 5 hours of rendering. So that's definitely what a lot of people don't see. But I think for me now, I try to keep people involved within the process, at least the clients that I was working with, to kind of show them like this is what the process is and this is how the invoice builds up. So they
Yeah,
kind of know what's going on.
for sure. There's a lot of trial and error that happens in the background, and people just kind of see the finished result. But there's a lot
Mm,
of pain and trial, and a lot of stuff that happens in the back. I'll leave it at that. That I think all entrepreneurs listening can definitely resonate a lot with. So
yeah, for
totally,
sure.
totally understand what you're going through there. On a personal note, you were actually featured by Complex Magazine a few years ago. How did that
Yeah.
happen?
Good old Instagram DM. Honestly, like I feel like a lot of people they think like, oh, he's got to know somebody on the inside. How'd that happen?
No, he's just
Like
the dog of a designer. That's what he is.
yeah. And that kind of goes back to the research side of things. Being in like streetwear and stuff, like a lot of people I know would look to Complex Magazine, like sneaker shopping. Like I think everyone in the world has probably seen at least one episode. But the guy that was on there, his name was Rax Hogan. He used to work for Complex like as a field reporter, and he used to go to like all the drops in New York and just take a microphone and just ask people questions like in line. And he was like the supreme guy, like he just was at every supreme drop in New York and wherever. He had every shoe, stuff like that. And I pretty much just like followed him on Instagram, and he got on live one day, like Instagram live, and he was talking about the concept of the show that he did. It was called The Mailroom. So basically it was just like up and coming brands can just mail their stuff, and it sits in the mailroom obviously, and he just started picking stuff out of the room that he wanted to feature on the show. And I saw that they were talking about it, and I was like, let me just message this guy in this live. I was like, hey, like, can I send something to you guys for the mailroom? And then somehow he miraculously saw it, and then he was like, I'm just gonna make a post about it. So he posted it on his Instagram. Obviously, whatever, complex, mailroom, New York, stuff like that. But I thought to myself, I was like, okay, how if this guy has 25,000 followers, let's even take like less than 1%. Even if 50 people send him stuff, I need to stand out between these 50 people that are sending all this stuff to this guy. So I was like, okay, how can I stand out? The D17, I love red. Like I have red stuff all around me. That's just a personal thing. Um, and I was like, I'm going to make my box like specifically for him, not just to send, just specifically for him. So I designed a whole custom box that just said, just for racks, uh, ready to get out of the mail room. I put the logo on the front. I personally signed the box. Like, this is for racks,
I saw that.
Terrance, creative director. When I put the stuff in the box, I tried to make sure that it kind of spoke to the whole brand. I sent some of our friends and family hoodies. I sent running hoodies. I sent the water bottles. I saw him on Instagram live like 2 months ago, and he still had the water bottle, just to kind of show the full breadth of the brand. And getting that just like skyrocketed, everything, just being able to get that brand awareness, get a little bit of that organic, like social proof as well on such a major network. They actually tagged me, thank goodness. That was half the battle. But, just being able to kind of just shoot your shot. It was a very cold DM, not gonna lie. But you have to shoot it smart. You have to like, I can't reach out to the VP of Complex, but I can find somebody that's like an associate or something at the company that might be interested in what I'm doing, or being able to kind of touch with, it's not always going to be like, hey, Let me talk to Jay-Z. It's like, well, maybe if I can get to his assistant or his assistant's assistant or just the guy that they like buy coffee from or something. And it kind of like trails its way back up. And that's always kind of been a thing for me, whether it is doing my influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, anything that we do with our sponsorships. It's like we might not need to go get the big whale. We can get a whole bunch of little fish, but if you get a whole bunch of little fish together, it looks like the big whale. And that's kind of how we were piecing it together, at least in the beginning. But now I'm trying to go for the big fish now. So,
Yeah. I love how you
you know,
said shoot your shot and shoot your smart shot, because I think a lot of the times people try to go for the big fish right away. But realistically, and I got advice from another kind of a friend a while ago about something like this, but it's about
mm,
kind of reach out to someone that you think will resonate with your stuff, and then that person will tell someone that it'll slowly build up. So if you can kind of delay your gratification a bit and take that step by step process, I definitely think that's a better approach to have.
yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned streetwear, and that's the main thing that you're kind of involved in. And I spoke about this a little bit earlier, but streetwear and kind of clothing in general is competitive as hell. What can
Mm.
you do as a brand to really make your brand stand out and resonate with people?
Yeah, I think truly like it's everywhere. Like it's just so, and there's brands that have been around like for so long, like the Stussies, the Palaces, the Supremes, the Bapes, like they've been around. A lot of people don't even know, at least the American ones have been around since like the 80s and they're still making stuff now. I think for anybody that is trying to get into the space and want to like sustain in the space, it truly is just honing down to what you truly believe in, at least your personal, like, not preferences, but like true passions.
Like the vibe.
Um, yeah, like for us, it started out, the brand started out, I wanted to be this like luxury kind of thing. And it wasn't like that. A lot of the times, at least for startups, and at least in my practice, a lot of people associate the person, the founder, with the business. And I grew up an athlete. I grew up playing sports and, doing the art stuff. But at the trade, people knew me as an athlete. So a lot of the times I was getting a lot of weird consumer feedback of people thinking that I was making an athletic brand. And I was like, no, I wasn't even thinking about that when I first started. And it grew to the point that it was like, maybe I should be taking this avenue. And then that's when we kind of started working on D17 Athletics, which is more or less our like outreach for the sponsorships. Like if we do anything with like professional teams or amateur teams, we go under the D17 Athletics. And even that, I was like, okay, how can we then break that out into something else? That could be running, it could be soccer, it could be pickleball, it could be basketball. But I don't think we can tackle every sport. We can't, I'm not Nike, so it's not going to happen, at least right now. So I was like, okay, I'm really into athletics. I'm really into design and I'm really into community and being able to kind of tie those things back together. Cause honestly, a lot of our motifs and things we were picking from, at least in the beginning of the brand, were very running inspired, very early on 1990s Phil Knight, outfits or watching celebrities run 5Ks, that you see on like CNN and stuff like that. We pulled from a lot of that. So, okay, we have an athletic approach. We're using the designs to kind of solve solutions and kind of bringing our own flair to the space. But then the community cart brought the activation. What are we doing for athletes and, sports where I'm at? So we kind of looked at it like, okay, we're doing sponsorships with Columbia FC. That's like my hometown. We're a kit sponsor for their soccer team. We looked at being able to provide money into the recreation and parks in the area to help kids alleviate the cost of what it is to go to summer camp for like sports summer camps to bring that cost down. We've been able to work with other soccer organizations within Washington, D.C., like District Rain, to help develop an academy to essentially to develop soccer players within the region versus sending them all the way to Florida IMG or sending them out to California like Sierra Canyon. So it's like, how are we able to kind of push that together, at least under the brand name? And I think we've done a really good job with doing that. And now in the running space, we've been able to sponsor at least 5Ks with last year that help causes from, helping underprivileged students, being able to do mental health awareness, anything that does with like financial literacy and education. and being able to kind of tie that all back together. And then when they see the clothes, they're like, oh, he's actually kind of dope. So I'm like,
That's good.
they don't see that part, but once they kind of figure that out, it kind of ties it all back together, and we're able to kind of develop our own world. And as more people kind of discover it, they're like, okay, I can stick with this. I can go to an event. I might not need to buy a t-shirt, but they're throwing an event here, or we're going here, or we're doing this, and piecing it all together. Cause some people just think streetwear is just, t-shirt on a cool guy. Bam. It's going to blow up. No, there's so many
More than that.
t-shirts in the world. There's so many logos in the world. It's like the more that you kind of just not really diversify, like, well, everything's about this. Let's just go the opposite way. It's like sometimes that's not what people want. Sometimes people just want to feel a brand resonate with their own lifestyle, and they just resonate with what they're already doing, or expose them to something that they're not doing, which is what we're doing with the running stuff that we do, is exposing new people to running, being able to give information and context around the running community. We have our own running club. We do compete and participate. So that's kind of like the levels up, and then we just go from there and just make it fun. That's at least how I try to approach it. And I'm almost 6, 7 years in doing this, and I'm still here. It's like, so something's
Definitely.
afloat. My
Yep.
Shopify still works, so something's got to be working.
Definitely. I think I really like one of the points that you said. I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to brands or clothing providers, you mentioned earlier, a lot of people just want to put a shirt on a famous person or put a shirt on an influencer and be like watch the sales rake in. But I think
Mm,
what you said and what I think is like so accurate that people could take away from is that don't try to like match the cloud. Try to match the vibe that you're looking for. Because I think if you can
mm,
match the vibe, the whole point is here you're trying to get people to resonate with your brand, and if you can get people to
mm.
resonate and feel something, that's what's really going to drive sales, in my humble opinion, at least.
Yeah, and we also try, like I mentioned before, to find other ways outside of just like buying product. Like it's like, yeah, you don't need to always just buy the t-shirt to be in the club. Like we've done collaborations, like I've done collaborations with my old high school for their 50th anniversary. Like we put together like this super cool t-shirt and just gave it away to the students, just to celebrate the moment. We've been able to do stuff, like I said, with the running club, putting together like an actual team. Like we're actually getting actual uniforms and singlets and gear to wear. So like our progression with the run club is, yeah, you can start whatever miles you want to start with. If you want to go long distance, cool. If you want to do short, cool. But we run the Baltimore Marathon annually every with at least a team between, I'd say, 4 and 8 people. But that gives our runners something to look forward to. It's not just running around neighborhoods and running at the track. It's actually like a competition that's like, okay, this is how I can get my PRs. This is what I can look forward to. D17 is providing these super cool freaking singlets. Like we look like an actual official team, and being able to kind of provide that. And even people that come, they might not even participate in the Baltimore Marathon, but they just want to be around the people and have a space to meet new people and get those new experiences. And then over time, they're like, hey, well, you have any water bottles? I want to take this water bottle with me. I'm like, yeah, sure. It kind of develops that rapport. Cause I'm really big on like event activation, because sometimes that's how you get into like getting stuff, or be like, okay, I want to purchase this product. Or, now we're working with retailers now, at least on the wholesale side. I'm like, hey, I can sell you X amount of shirts, and I can bring X amount of people into your store too. So not only are we bringing product, we're bringing foot traffic too. If we're doing a pop up or some type of activation with a retailer, and we've been in a lot of talks with a lot of major retailers, smaller ones, and then again, we have to be strategic in where we would like to put the product. But it's definitely exciting, and I love just seeing all the people come out and enjoy the things. If they get something free, cool. Sometimes they just want to meet me. Sometimes they just want to have a good time. We did a baseball thing with a minor league team, the Bowie Bay Sox. People, they got free hats, but some, they just wanted the beer. I'm like,
Nothing wrong with that.
me too. I don't care. I love baseball and beer, so let's just put it all together.
Yeah, I feel that. You spoke about a lot of the companies or a lot of the people that you've gotten a chance to collaborate with. And
Mm.
speaking of, funny that you brought up Phil Knight because this all kind of comes full circle because one of his biggest competitors from reading Shoe Dog was Tiger, and Tiger ended up kind of, I forget if they bought or if they merged with Asics, but
Mm.
basically Asics is kind of under Tiger, which you actually got a chance to become a brand ambassador for recently. How did that happen?
Mm. Once again, a lot of connections. I used to actually, a lot of people, I think they knew, but a lot of people didn't know. I used to work for ASICS corporate, up in Boston for about like a year and a half. But around that time, it was like, like really height COVID time. So it was like, I was out of the state, the city was shutting down. I went up there, the city shut down again. I wasn't really able to like get the full experience of working for the company. Cause even at that time, it was the 2020 Olympics and like, I was able to work on the campaigns and talk with athletes and stuff like that. But, like life changes and things happened. I had to leave the company. But when I left, it wasn't like, ah, only new, peace out, y'all. I still stayed in contact with a lot of people from the company, just from ecom to retail to merchandising to social to photography, from all over the globe, really. And, I give a lot of praise and kudos to ASICS for being that kind of company that took a chance with me. Because I really wanted to get into sportswear. I'm like right down the street from Under Armour. I love Under Armour, Kevin Plank. If you hear this somehow, I still love you guys, but man, I applied to y'all so many times. And I'm like, I'm right here. And it even got to the point I met Kevin Plank in the mall and I was like, why am I not working for y'all? I'm literally right down the street, and, they're still doing great things, but being able to, now like in my entrepreneur life, being able to keep those relationships and nurturing them, really helped. And then when they put out, the press for ASICS ambassadors, I just sent a quick text and I was like, yo, bro, like, this looks fun. I would actually really enjoy this. I like making social content. I love the shoes. I'm already training and running and stuff. I already have a run club and it all just kind of merged together for it's called the Team Sound Mind, Sound Body ambassadors. And, I got selected for the DMV team and it's now been, we all love getting the product true, but we also love being able to like collaborate, like even the other ambassadors for the DC Cherry Blossom 10 miler. We all actually got to meet each other. Some people participated in the races. Some people, we just went to the events together and just like showed face like, hey, we're the ambassador team. I met all the people down in Virginia Beach, my Spark Worldwide family, and now I'm going down there in like 2 weeks to go run with them. There's people, they're all over the country. Like I plan to go out to Atlanta at some point, Texas at some point, New York at some point, just to meet all these people and keep running, all while still, building our run club and making those connections. So, um, it's been cool for at least the last 2 months that I've been a part of the program. And they've definitely helped us and helped me not only with my own personal growth, but even my own racing plans and helping out our run club. And, as much as I've given to them, they're giving it like 3 times back to me. So, here we are. And it helps kind of with my own entrepreneur life, like being able to, know I have a little bit of back end, like, okay, I can make social content for myself. It kind of helps into the social content I'm making for like D17, keeps my ideas fresh. I kind of can see the landscape of stuff from their perspective and my own perspective. And everybody likes free shoes, so
Yeah.
I'm not complaining.
For sure. I want to zoom out for a second, just talking about Baltimore. What's the creative scene like
Mhm.
in Baltimore? Like, are there a lot of creatives out there?
Yeah, right now it's so great because one, my Orioles are doing something. Finally, I've never seen them win a World Series in my lifetime, but if they
Maybe we'll
do
see
it,
you guys. I'm outside Philly. Maybe we'll see you guys in a World Series. But
oh
when,
yeah, definitely. I'm still a Bryce Harper guy.
yeah,
They're playing the Nats tonight in DC, so that's fun. But yeah, there's Baltimore creatives are just so it's just so many disciplines. It's so many things. Like I'm actually going to a event this weekend. with what's called it's a place called Social Status, and pretty much it's another retailer called Ama Miniere and the Whitaker Group. They've been putting together this program called Future Forward, and basically it's taking all these cities around the country and putting the creatives together to find new ways and avenues to give back to the city. And I'm looking to join their board of creatives, at least in Baltimore. It's always weird because I'm like, yeah, I'm on the sports side of stuff. Like, I don't really rap. I don't really, I'm not a painter. I don't make sculptures and stuff, but um, it's definitely ever changing and slowly getting its praise. Even the DMV in general, like the number 2 song in the country by Tommy Richmond, $1 Million Baby. Like he's from like outside of Washington, D.C. So it's like, we're able to see a little bit of shine and continue to keep it going. And now I love that Baltimore is getting its praise and its exposure. At least for me on the sports side, I kind of can jump in now and be like, okay, if the Orioles want to do a collaboration, no one's gonna laugh at me because we went, 12 and 150 something. We can at least get something productive out of it. So that's always the fun part, at least
We'll,
stuff here.
we'll see. Maybe we'll see a D17 logo on the jerseys come playoff time. So we'll have to.
Look, I was close last year. I was close. I know management. If they listen, I was close last year. We got a little stuck, like you said, like always the planning and the entrepreneur life. Like things move so fast. It's fast. You have to act quickly, like quickly and strategically. But they want if they didn't go on the playoff run, we could have saw a little something. I'll leak it here a little bit. We could have saw something, but um, they went on the playoff run and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. But they had to get ready for something bigger. And I was like, all right, I'll just wait till next season. So
Well,
we'll see.
well,
We'll see.
we'll have to stay tuned for sure. I want to talk about creativity for a second. So we've
Mm,
been talking a lot about creativity and design during the show or during the conversation. I think there's a lot of debate about creativity being something that's innate or something that can be trained. So, as a creative entrepreneur, in your opinion, do you think creativity is something that's innate or something that can be conditioned in someone? Like, do you think you can condition someone to become more creative?
I think it takes a little bit of both, low key. Because just at the end of the day, art is all subjective. It's all, based on people's opinions and experiences and stuff like that. I think really in terms of the creative side, it's more or less like the execution of it. Like I'm creative visually, and I think I'm a little bit creative like auditory as well. Like I love music. I love hearing different kinds of music. It doesn't have to be just like one genre, but there's definitely somebody out there that's been like so inspired by whatever it could be, but they don't know how to execute it in terms of like, okay, we're gonna make a piece of work or design something or record a song or play an instrument or stuff like that. Because I know for me, it kind of comes a little bit more innate, but I don't know if it really came that way because I was exposed to so much at such an early age. So I'm like, okay, I kind of understand this stuff. And I kind of can learn the passion from it. But even like my friends that quote unquote don't call themselves creative, like a lot of times they see stuff that even I don't see. And I'm like, huh, I didn't even know that. Or, oh, I haven't even seen that. Like, for example, my good friend Jorge, he is like my biggest sports aficionado ever. And he's really big on like soccer, him and my friend Mezin. But they both see stuff like I wouldn't have known to look at. Let's say, oh, I want to develop a jersey, for a soccer program. And I'm looking at these things, but they're like, no, you got to look back at this, 1991 Manchester United goalie second kit. Like I'm like, I didn't even know that existed. But in their eyes, like, oh, this is like the coolest thing ever. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't even know what this was. So now they're exposing me to stuff too, and being able to kind of go back and understand what that is. I just know how to execute it. Like I can see something and like, okay, I'm going to go draw a picture. But some people, they're not that good at drawing, but art is subjective. What their art and my art could be two completely different things. So being able to kind of do that part, I think the execution is a little bit more has to be taught. I think creativity lives in everybody and what we wear, what our color our car is, what our stream setup looks like. what the color of our phones are. That's all creativity in its essence. Just some people monetize it, some people don't. Some people make stuff out of it, some people don't. Some people like K-pop. Some people like to listen to official soundtracks of Sonic Adventure 2. Not talking about myself, but I am excited for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in December. It's all over. So it's just gotta, I think a lot more people need to just tap into it. Even if it's just sketching stupid stuff on your phone, you don't know what that could turn into or what an idea could blossom into.
So, about art, do you think when an artist is designing something or when a clothing designer is doing something, do you think that it's more important that they do it for an audience or they do it more for themselves?
I think it's a bit of both. At least I know in my practice, I think at least my audience kind of resonates with the stuff that I do personally. I think they've grown more to like, we kind of share the same interests. And that definitely helps with like building like the business and the brand. Like I didn't want to try to tackle an industry or something that I don't really know a lot about, because then I kind of fight the learning curve. I know a lot about fashion. I know a lot about sneakers. I know a lot about pop culture. I know a lot about digital trends. And then being able, like, when my number size starts to kick in, I know how to jump into like Google Analytics or in our Sprout Social to kind of understand where people are kind of navigating and what, accounts they're following. Like, I know people that like that stuff. They follow Hype Beast or High Snobiety or Complex Magazine. I know that people that like the digital realm, they're into Twitch and Kick and YouTube gaming. But then it's like, okay, I can kind of take myself and put into it, and it doesn't feel like it's being forced. Like if I get on stream and I'm wearing this hoodie and I'm playing DayZ, you know people kind of resonate, like, okay, it's all kind of, it doesn't seem inorganic versus me trying to be like, oh, I'm just going to do this and go here, and then people are going to say, this doesn't seem right. This is weird. So it definitely takes some time. But at least for me and a lot of people, I feel like it's just a lot of trial and error too.
Definitely. So I want to zoom out a little bit, thinking about entrepreneurship here. So a lot of times when people think about entrepreneurs, they think about the riches, the glamour, the celebrities in charge of these big companies. In
Yeah.
your eyes, what's the reality of entrepreneurship?
It's definitely, and let's just keep it extremely raw. It's definitely one, doing your taxes correctly. Two, you have to pay your taxes correctly. Three, you can't go out and buy 6 pairs of shoes because your full-time job is paying for it. I have to scale back on a lot of things now, which is not a bad thing. I don't need to be super materialistic. It's definitely a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of no's. It's a couple yeses. Um, it's a lot of planning. You actually have to plan your day. There's not an HR department yelling at me at the moment because I am HR. There is no, performance review because I have to make my own. It's like, it's just so much personal. What I've learned, personal accountability, and a lot of routine building. Because I'll definitely say, like, also not just routine building, but also self awareness. So kind of like taking it back. So pretty much how I jumped into the full time entrepreneur, like a lot of people that are suffering now, layoffs. So I was like, okay, I have this business that I've been building all this other stuff. Let's see where I can take this thing. Um, and then being able, at least for me, it took me a good, I would say 3 months to say, this is my job now. This is what I'm doing. I'm going all in, I'm playing my hand at whatever, what I might not even have a royal flush. I might have a handful of ass,
All,
but
all
I'm
you
going to
need,
play the card though.
all you need is the high card, man. That's all
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah. But at first it took me a long time to realize, like, this is what I'm doing. This is my thing. When people ask me like, oh, I'm out of a, no, I am founder and creative director of D17. I'm also a freelance social media creator. And, I do other stuff, I stream, stuff like that. And you have to take a lot of confidence in it, because a lot of times it's like, I wasn't really thinking like this was going to be my avenue of creating stuff. But then once I did, it helped me, kind of going back to my three, developing those routines. Because when I first got laid off, I was like, crap, I can sleep till 11:30 and no one can stop me. It's like, I got nowhere to go. I can do whatever I want. I can eat sushi and McDonald's at 3 o'clock. It's like when you're a kid and school's out for the summer. It's like I can do whatever I want. But in the back of your mind, school is coming back in the fall. Now it's like school is like never coming back. And then, it's kind of like doing whatever. But also kind of going back to my first thing, it's really just honing down and being like, okay, you know, life still comes in. There's still bills that need to be paid. I still got to eat, I still want to have fun. So being able to kind of piece those things together to like get your routine, keep your self care together, waking up at the correct time. Like now I'm at the point I get up at 7 o'clock now, like on the dot. Like before I was like, I'll sleep in, I'll do this. But you have to work almost like 9 times as hard to get like $100,
Yeah.
like not saying just that number, but it's like you have to really put in the work to see the work back. And then even if it's like for myself, yeah, I do the business stuff, but as well as I also brand myself as a person. Like I've done like adjunct teaching. I've always wanted to do that. I've now have the freedom to doing that. I love traveling. Not only do I love traveling, I can start making content. I can start making content when I travel. The ASIC stuff, I love running. I love being able to put that in my daily routine. And now, ASICs is, I don't have to worry about uh, keep myself together. Like now ASIC's like, okay, I want to run 2 races a month. I want to make 4 pieces of content a month. I want to do, it kind of helps keep my routine together because if you don't have that, you're gonna one, like reverse burn yourself out because it's like you don't have the motivation really. And then two, it's also being able to still worry about yourself, like adopting new things. Like I do yoga in the morning. I never did yoga in the morning. I do 15 minutes of stretching every morning when I get up, my little child's pose, things like that. I try to drink 64 ounces of water, a day just to keep myself together. I take a lot of eye breaks because I send so many emails. I can't burn my eyes out. I use my calendar more often just to keep myself together. Because not only is the things that I need to do, but still there's life that needs to happen, graduations, birthdays, take my own vacation time. When I was working, I sucked at taking PTO. Nowadays, I take at least like 3 days, just like, I'm not even going to touch the computer. I'm not even going to touch it because I have to go back outside to continue to be inspired, but also can't let my brain fry out from all the work that I'm doing because I know in the end I'm going to be okay. Even if that is like getting another position, like if I do go back to corporate life, I know I built so much what I've done in the free time, but still understanding like if you really want to jump into it, like you gotta, as they say, like you gotta fly the plane while building the plane while still learning like all that stuff. Um, the hardest part is taking the leap. A lot of people don't want to take the leap or they get nervous about it. I'm too stubborn and hard headed. I jumped with my hands behind my back like Miles
Fuck it.
Morales in the Spider-Man movie. I just said, whoa, whatever happens, happens. Like, there's something down there. But, you know, the amount of opportunities I think that I built in my, new freelance time or full time, the things I've done on the freelance side, the things I've been able to get back into that I missed so much, like making cover arts or recording music or something. I started doing voiceovers, for, and it kind of helps build me to like do things like this. Now I know how to, get my speaking together and get new equipment. Okay, I can do this. I need to do that. Doing my taxes correctly. I can write all that stuff off. Just you gotta know the game and work around the game and still have fun and tackle things and stay creative and go from
Little,
there. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm
little,
at right now.
little bit of everything for sure, and you're doing great, my man. But the one note that I'll add on entrepreneurship there, I kudos to everything that you just said. But I think the thing that people really need to know is that entrepreneurship is a huge risk, and yeah, there's
Mm,
a chance it doesn't work out. But I think that what people should take in mind is that the risk is definitely worth the reward in the sense that worst case, maybe you're a little more broke than when you started. Best case, is that for the rest of your life, you get to do something you enjoy, and get paid for it too. So that's how I view that.
Oh yeah, and I definitely like one more thing. I saw a video on TikTok and somebody said like a little bit about like business and entrepreneur stuff, but it really was like how to really value yourself now because you know, like I tell people all the time, there's days I might get zero flat sales. It's some days I might get 120 in a day. It's just like, it's so up and down like a wave. And I saw a video on TikTok. It was the guy asked him, he said, what would you do if I offered you $10 million right now? Would you take it? Everybody's like, yeah, duh, I would take it. But then they're like, but the caveat is you don't wake up tomorrow. Then it's like, well, I don't think I would want it anymore. So it's kind of like a weird metaphor, like, waking up to see the next day is worth more than $10 million. But then it's also like being able to know, like now I'm in a zone, like you just mentioned, I could go, super in the red, but also with entrepreneurship, don't blow yourself into the ground. Like that's what I
Yeah,
always tell people, like, don't do that. But your potential literally is like limitless. The amount of things that you can do at such speed and such things you couldn't do before. Like I said, working with the bigger brands, if it is anything like collaboration wise, they've got the bread to do that stuff. And if you can value yourself and put yourself in those positions to where like you can do things with the business and bring value that they're looking for, a lot of times that comes with a really, really pretty invoice, and it's like, now I can kind of figure out, okay, like if I'm streaming, what if this is just how I think. What if I just reach out to the company that makes the game? If it's an independent game, why don't I just reach out to them? Hey, that's what I did before. Hey, do you guys need new clothing to put in the game? They said, we know we do parody stuff. If it says Adidas, it says like Floodidas, or Nike, it says like, you know, Bikey or something like that. I'm like, well, how about this? I'll give you guys a license to put my stuff. I have a little bit of gaming credibility and stuff. I'm gonna give you guys a license to put my stuff in your game. I'll take a little bit of a fee, whatever, just to have it in the game. But the caveat is you guys help me with my streaming stuff. So now I'm getting subs and I'm getting paid from the company, as well as my business is growing, as well as I'm still doing the same stuff that I'm doing. And I got a game, something in a game. It hasn't happened yet, but I don't care. What are they going to say? No. Okay. I'll go to the next company. I'll call, it's like, it's just, you just got to keep going and going and going and going. And when you get the no, when you get the yes, it's going to feel good. And then if you keep getting the no's, it's like, all right, just know that it's not the end of the world because you're making the world. You got to keep building it. And entrepreneurship, I'm not an angel investor and stuff yet, but
one day. I love
I
how you
make,
said that it's not the end of the world, you're building the world. Definitely, I think that really resonates.
yeah.
I want to ask you here on a parting note, and I think you're going to love this question.
All right.
Spoken a lot about creativity and design. If there's one designer, dead or alive, that you'd love to get dinner with, who would it be, and what would you ask them?
Oh, geez. It probably, I've been really big on Virgil Abloh, the former creative director of Off-White, um, because I know I've just was so invested for a long time about like the stuff that he was doing and a lot of the things that he was making, not just the stuff he did with Nike, but a lot of stuff like a lot of people didn't know that he had a company before he made Off-White. Like he had a whole other thing before he started this, but if he never did the first thing, it wouldn't have led him to the second thing, as well as being able to see, like, I would love to ask him, like, what pieces of what you're building with the business, when are the times that you had to take a step back and say, I can't do it all? Because that's definitely something that I've learned, especially like being a business owner and entrepreneurship. I can't do everything. There's some things that I would love to be so hands on because I'm so invested and my interest is there. But it's also like, you have Off-White, but you did the collaboration with Nike. Obviously, there was some type of synergy there. But obviously, it's going to propel one or the other. Like a lot of people are going to be like, what the heck is this Off-White? Okay, now it's building that business. How do you continue to keep those relationships with those like big companies? And how do you be able to not get overshadowed. Because I feel like a lot of times, especially with the business stuff, it's like, yeah, I could work with this company or work with these people, but it also kind of like low key overshadows you because you're the smaller brand. But how can you be able to kind of build that synergy together and nurture it for a long time? Because he was making those off-white shoes for years, like for a long time. I remember I was in undergrad when the first ones came out. They're still making them, even past his death. But you know, he did so many other things. He was a DJ. He was, you know, working with like Jay-Z and all of them and stuff like that. Like I think him as a brand and then him as a person are like the same thing. And I like doing the same thing. And I feel like he was a good person to do that, to talk with. So I would definitely say Virgil Abloh or Pharrell. I like Pharrell just because he lives in Miami. I like Miami. So
Yeah, I like Miami too, but I think those are some great questions and stuff that I also as an entrepreneur could definitely resonate with. But Terrance, my man, it's been an absolute blast. I've loved the chat, love talking to creatives, and man, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
yeah, I'm glad we were able to get it done. Anybody listening, I hope this provides some value. I know I'm a random tangent rambler. And Daniel, thank you for, making your flexibility in your schedule to get this down. And, let's hope we made some magic happen.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Terrance Diggs. I have one small favor to ask of you. Can you please, please, please subscribe to the podcast? The more subscribers we have, the more we can invest in the show, and the more we can scale the production, and the better quality everything will be. I promise that if you hit subscribe, that everything about the show will get better, and it'll be a much better experience, and you'll learn that much more from it. So please do me that one small favor, and until next time.